Good morning and good early afternoon. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am Jake Wolf and you are in Real Estate America's newsroom. We made it again. Congratulations. We are here today to celebrate June 7th, 2002, the year of our Lord. We've got a pretty powerful show today, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know $3.9 billion in COVID relief went to the real estate industry? We're going to investigate that. USA Today, housing market shifting to the buyers in 2022. A little bit of horseradish. Do you like horseradish on your sandwich? Well, what happens if it's served a little bit heavy? We're going to go ahead and get into a mouthful of horseradish pertaining to the gas prices coming in segment number 3. Back to the mortgage and appraiser news with my main man, Captain Kirk Jaffe, and Mr. Mark Buhler, and Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey says, wait until home prices go down. Or did he not say that? Anyways, we're going to get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Stick around to the very end of the show. Once again, we've got a big bang for you. And until then, I'm going to bring in my illustrious and esteemed and infamous co-host, Mr. Nick Sakis.
Mr. Wolf, how we doing,
Hello,
sir?
Nicholas.
So you know how every day passes by and you might hear from a friend that it was like National Frog Legs Day, or there's all these random days out there that you feel like you just missed. Well, I missed National Donut Day a couple weeks ago, and I was pretty upset about it. So I did a little research, and I figured, you know what? I don't want to miss another good day again. And so if you go to nationaltoday.com, I felt like it was appropriate to let everybody know what days are happening today. And number one, which I think everybody can appreciate, June 7th is National Chocolate Ice Cream Day.
Oh, wait.
So
I'm interested in this National Frog Leg Day. What is that?
I don't know. That's something in Louisiana, I think. I'm not sure. But so today's National Chocolate Ice Cream Day, International Supply Chain Professionals Day. That's a mouthful. World Caring Day. Daniel Boone Day. That one might strike a fancy with you. I could see you with a squirrel hat on. Love Island Day. National VCR Day. Our listeners are probably old enough to own VCRs. Remember when you actually had to go to Blockbuster and you would be charged to rewind VCRs?
Oh, yeah, we did,
VHS?
didn't we?
Yeah,
we got charged if we didn't rewind our tapes.
And also, today is Prince's birthday. So I hope that you guys will eat some chocolate ice cream and listen to some Prince today.
Well, that was a mouthful. That was definitely a mouthful.
I do what I can, my friend.
Interesting enough. So wait, there was one in there. National Supply Chain. What was that one?
National Supply Chain Professionals Day.
Wait a second. Those guys are having a rough time right now. Should we really be, rewarding the supply chain?
I will put this website in the chat. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's nationaltoday.com and then / what is today.
Oh my gosh.
You can go check it out yourself.
Hey,
so when you're making those cold calls as a real estate agent, you don't know what to say. You could say, hey, did you know today was National Ice Cream Day?
Oh,
by the way, how's your house doing? Let me come over and check it out. Give you a CMA of sorts.
Nick, why should people go ahead and listen to us at Real Estate America's newsroom? There's people that are viewing right now, and we're talking about a whole bunch of this. But if you're new to viewing us, why should they even watch us?
That's right. So if you head over to RU Nation, we are basically combining the knowledge of several industry professionals, and we want you as one of those professionals. So we have all the show notes and everything in there. This Real Estate America News is for the agents, by agents. We are boots on the ground, wanting to keep you up to date on what's going on in the real estate industry across the country. We have representation from markets right now, but we are looking for more. So if you'd like to be on the show, head over to runation.com, fill out the form, and let us know, because we'd like to get you on the show and talk about what's going on in your market.
Yeah. Yep. So we stream every Tuesday and Thursday at high noon Eastern, ladies and gentlemen, on the RU Nation Network. Go to runation.com and check it out. Real Estate America's newsroom has got a pretty awesome newsroom over there with a whole bunch of our past stuff. So good deal. Nick, $3.9 billion in COVID relief went to the real estate industry.
I missed that. I don't know what happened. I must have been asleep.
3.9 billion. Let's go ahead and let's take a quick look at what's going on there. It's in the mainstream news. Let's go ahead and listen to that, and then we'll spin it. Here we go.
One of the biggest government relief programs in history, the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP loan program, was meant to be a lifeline for small businesses through a dark period of the pandemic.
From coast to coast, empty streets, businesses closed.
As dire as things looked in March and April of 2020, many entities ended up faring well through COVID. Some of them benefited from the program and got loans forgiven even after their business bounced back. An NBC News analysis of data from the government's Pandemic Response Accountability Committee found that the federal government authorized more than 300,000 PPP loans to real estate entities claiming just one employee. That adds up to $3.9 billion in loans backed by the U.S. Small Business Administration. Yet, unlike other industries like tourism and hospitality, which suffered during the pandemic, real estate boomed.
Bidding wars are on the rise. 41% of listings sparked bidding wars.
Existing home sales in June jumped 20.7%. That is the largest one-month jump ever since the Realtors began recording in 1968.
Between April of 2020 and January of 2021, existing home sales jumped more than 50%. Now, the price of homes are at least 38% higher than in January of 2020. In Santa Barbara, real estate agent Gary Goldberg was involved in the sales of luxury homes equaling more than $27 million in 2020. In 2021, jumping to 82 million, according to a history of listings on Zillow. Even estimating a conservative commission, that could still mean potentially 7 figures in earnings over the 2 years. Yet public records show Goldberg's business also received $95,000 in PPP loans, which were forgiven in 2021. We reached out to ask him about it, but he declined to comment. There's no indication he did anything illegal. He's also not alone. In West Los Angeles, Enzo Ricciardelli was the agent in $12.2 million of home sales in 2020 per his Zillow history, and his business also received more than a $145,000 loan from the Paycheck Protection Program, forgiven in 2021. Efforts to reach him were unsuccessful. NBC News reached out to a dozen agents with strong 2020 sales and whose businesses obtained PPP loans in excess of $90,000 that were wholly or partially forgiven by the federal government. None agreed to do an on-camera interview. Aaron Stackley with the National Association of Realtors defended those who asked for PPP loan forgiveness in her industry.
They had open houses canceled because obviously people didn't want people traipsing through their homes. If they received the loans in good faith and if they followed the program's rules, then that is what the SBA and Congress intended to happen.
The loans were made with the understanding that they'd be forgiven if the recipient met certain criteria, like spending 60% of it on payroll. But not everybody was able to get assistance. Back in Los Angeles, we visited an address listed on one realtor's loan. A new business had moved in. The manager there telling us what it was like to get denied.
In the beginning of the pandemic, it was very hard because everything was shutting down and closing and not available, and it was pretty tough. Yeah. Now we're barely trying to get our heads above the water now. The banks were also very kind of iffy. They were saying we are not qualifying.
Yet for real estate entities, forgivable loans were given back to realtors in many booming markets. $3.6 million to real estate entities in Beverly Hills, $4.3 million in El Paso, Texas, and $14.9 million in Charlotte, North Carolina. Out of the realtors we tried to contact, one did say she plans to return the money. Phyllis Paytick, a real estate agent in Austin, Texas, got an $83,300 loan. She says she'll pay hers back, citing her good business through the pandemic.
So Guad Venegas joins us now. And Guad, I guess I understand a business asking for forgiveness, if you can ask why.
Quite interesting.
Very interesting. Yep.
So $3.9 billion, gentlemen. Now, I love the realtors. I think that profession is very needed. Competent real estate agents. They're held by a high code of ethics. They are there. They fully understand the marketplace, and I think they're underappreciated in many ways. However, what's this thing, $3.9 billion? Apparently, some people took advantage of it. Mr. Nick, what say you?
This is so sticky, right? Because
Yes,
I mean,
we're gonna get into it. Everybody's tuned in. What does Nick have to
yeah,
say
it's
about
kind
his
of
one?
like, well, so to me, it's kind of like when people get upset when you say like, rich people don't pay taxes because they know the laws and they understand how to use them, right? This is an instance of just small business owners and entrepreneurs. I don't want to say taking advantage, but using a system that was set out for them. So is it good, bad, or indifferent? It was set out before them, and the people who took advantage of it took advantage of it. Do I think that I would have a bad taste in my mouth if somebody got a lot of money? And again, a lot of money is relative to anybody here, but $80,000, right, is usually a lot of money to most people. If she doesn't have to pay that money back, she doesn't have to pay that money back. Those are the rules, and they're playing by the rules. So I applaud all the people who took advantage of the situation, because that's what entrepreneurs do. They see a hole, they fill it, they solve a problem. This is just another example of that. So I have no issue with this at all. But I'm sure it's definitely going to, raise a lot of feathers.
Well, so people are planning on paying back that money, Mr. Tim Parnell. You're on mute, by the way. Oh, nope. Tim's still on mute. Kirk, you're on mute.
I'm good. I'm
There
good.
we
If
go.
we're
That's good.
to answer the question, people are what isn't paid back is a loan, right? What isn't forgiven is a loan, right? So what you've got is a loan for these people that doesn't start payment for 2 years after it was taken. And then I think it's like a 3 or 5% interest rate. I'm not sure. And then they've got 30 years to pay it back. But
okay, let's go there. So the mainstream news is yelling and screaming $3.9 billion in Paycheck Protection Program. Tim, break that down for us. You're saying this is considered a small business loan from the federal government. Anything that wasn't forgiven is borrowed from the taxpayers.
Correct. It is absolutely borrowed. And so you are now in loan to the hardest entity in the world to be in loan to and debt to, which is the U.S. government. So it's not like I'm praising anyone who is now indebted to the U.S. government. They better darn well have a plan to get out of it and pay it back. I think the really interesting part is the people who took it didn't read the fine print and just started spending it willy-nilly, not knowing they might be committing loan fraud. Okay, so that right there is the really crux of the issue is how does that even show up? Well, it shows up on your taxes, and if what's being tracked and spent, and anybody that took that loan last year and they're paying their taxes this year, and the taxes and their losses don't add up with the amount of money they took in as equity into their business, and you need to talk to a tax person. I'm not that person, but tax advisor on something like that. But that's where a lot of this is getting uncovered, is to the misappropriation of those funds and how it was spent against the fine print. Okay, people buying cars instead of paying their employees, or a boat instead of paying employees. And so where people say, yeah, people took advantage of it, I would argue they probably did, and they didn't read the fine print, and maybe their business was better than they thought it would be. So, hey, I've got this extra money. It's a cheap rate. It's 30 years. I'll go buy some fun stuff. And that's the unfortunate part of what's going on here. But my thing is, it's still a loan to the government, and you better have a plan to pay it back.
Let's check in with Mr. Kirk Jaffe, high on top of the beautiful Sierra Nevada mountains in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, everybody. I understood that there were two types of loans. There was a PPP loan for the payroll protection, which was forgivable. And then there was an EIDL loan, the emergency impact loan for small businesses, that was payable back at 3 to 5%, as you said, Tim. But regardless, I think in the real estate industry, I think we definitely have ethics concerns in this industry. That's why we have so many, California Association of Realtors, National Association of Realtors, all these different nonprofits or for-profits that are trying to track this. And I think people that are taking money, even though the average real estate agent only makes about $50,000 a year, and maybe a lot of them really needed that money to survive. But, to your point, Tim, I think if they took that money and bought a car or did something else that was, not directly related to keeping their employees working, maybe the trade organization should revamp some of those code of ethics concepts.
Yeah, and we had a guest that was or a viewer asking a question: what is forgiveness? So think of forgiveness as like a grant. So initially, it was taken out with the intent that you didn't know if it was going to be paid back or not, and so you took it on the assumption you were going to pay it back, and then for whatever reason, it qualified as a grant, and then therefore is forgiven. It is not having to be paid back. That should answer that question.
Nick, I know some people that went ahead and put their home into forbearance during the whole COVID situation that probably didn't need to go ahead and do it. This is kind of a similar situation, but different. What say you?
Yeah, that whole okay, so everybody's a genius looking back, right? That whole forbearance thing, when you got 11, 12, 13 months of non-payment, and then all of a sudden they just said, oh, we're just going to add it to the end. Like, those people made out like bandits. I have a year's worth of non-payment with no penalty and a loan modification on the back end. That was definitely taking advantage of the situation. Is it similar to this? I don't know. Like Tim said, you're still in debt. You still have a loan to the government. So if you went out and bought a Mercedes because you thought it was cool, it's going to bite you. But yeah, I have no issue. Obviously, this is a clickbait headline, sensationalized, making the realtors look bad because it's $3.9 billion. But let's look up, sharpen our pencil, and underline other industries and how many billions went other places, right?
Or didn't get dispersed. There's a lot of money that was allocated that's still hanging in different places, which is curious to me. What's all this? What's this? Kirk, speaking about forbearance, since we're going there, sometimes these banks are reinstating, modifying the back ends of these loans and putting them into a 40-year package as well now.
Yeah, they sure are. And, to your point, Nick, not everyone gets away unscathed. The credit bureaus have found a very clever way to track who was in forbearance. Even though forbearance was not supposed to be reported to credit bureaus in a negative way, it does show up there. There is a checkbox that shows each month of whether or not you made a payment. So even though your credit score doesn't negatively get impacted by taking a forbearance, those checkboxes are not checked on your credit report. So underwriters are now looking at that. And if they see those checkboxes haven't been checked, then they're demanding all the information around that forbearance and why you took it and all the background and verifications of it. So it can make a loan a lot more difficult than it used to be, for sure. But I think a lot of people needed those forbearances. The statistic was, I believe, less than 25% of the people that went into forbearance went through the full cycle. Most of them had paid back or caught up to their payments within 2 or 3 months. And it was most people that wanted to see what was going to happen, didn't know how the pandemic was going to play out for them in their business or in their life. So they took the forbearance as a precaution and then were able to catch up to that within a couple months. Most of the time, that's what happened.
Well, that sounds good. That sounds good. So I know a lot of banks were taking a look at some different things and figuring out a way how to non-judicially foreclose on some of these people that were in that program in some cases, and just to try to get their hands on the equity of these homes and take them back because of fears like the previous housing market. So quite interesting. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen that are viewing right now, USA Today is saying that it's turning into a buyer's market. Nick, do you think it's turning into a buyer's market?
I think there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the market.
Interesting.
And that stuff changes really quickly. The tides change really fast.
Yeah, weren't we talking like 1 week it was just going to be a rainstorm? Now there's supposedly a hurricane coming?
Yeah.
Interesting. Let's see what USA Today has to say.
So the housing market has been super competitive since the pandemic, but now there are signs emerging that things might be slowing down. So at the beginning of the first quarter, the Fed announced that they were going to raise interest rates throughout the year. As a result of that, the mortgage rates also were expected to go up. And so home buyers, in order to beat the coming mortgage rate hikes, flooded the market, wanted to get a contract signed as soon as possible. So you saw tremendous activity in the first quarter. Prices were up by more than 20% compared to last March. But then I've been talking to experts and they have been saying that in April and May, things appear to be slowing down a bit. The purchasing power of the buyer has come down because of the increased mortgage rates. And the reason why the mortgage rates are high is because the Fed raised the interest rates to tamp down on inflation. The cost of everything has gone up, so that itself brings the purchasing power of the buyer down. Added to that, you have the mortgage rate hikes. So all of those factors together, the demand has really gone down. So 1 in 5 sellers has had to take a price cut. That's a new reality now. And the people requesting tours have also gone down. So compared to last May, the number of people requesting tours have gone down by about 29%. It was basically a seller's market and they could literally demand anything they wanted. But now the buyers may have more negotiating power, right? So first of all, the sellers can't demand crazy prices. Secondly, buyers also can put in a few requests like contingencies, which were commonplace before the pandemic. People who are looking to sell their homes will have to make some concessions. They still will probably be making a profit if they bought the house more than 2 years ago, but the buyers are not going to be as aggressive as they were 2 years ago.
Mainstream media news is saying that we have a shift that's happening. Let's check in with our favorite appraiser in the whole wide world, Mr. Mark Buhler. Mark, what say you?
Well, I think that it depends on your market and what your price points are, whether or not we're going to be seeing price declines. She nailed it when she said that sellers could no longer be as, she didn't say this, but as greedy and expect people to come in and pay over ask. What I'm seeing is the contingencies that buyers are able to include now, again, are starting to reappear. We're starting to see homes stay on the market. In the past, we had buyers willing to waive everything, all inspections, appraisal contingencies, these types of things in order to get their offer accepted. So, one thing about the interest rates being higher in my market here, and I'm sure out in Nick's in Florida also, there's a lot of people that buy with cash and the interest rates do not affect them. So we definitely, I think a few weeks back, I mentioned that I'm starting to smell the brake dust. Now out in the streets, we're starting to see big skid marks all over the road.
I like that analogy. That's good.
Interesting. Yeah. Nick, what say you?
So we are approach. Well, let me back that up. So Mark, first of all, there are a lot of cash buyers, but interestingly enough, our luxury market starts at about $500,000 in most areas around here. We're sub 20% cash right now in those markets. So we are definitely seeing a pullback in cash on the luxury side, which is primarily what our average price point is, at least for our team and stuff. So what's happening right now, and all the agents and brokers that are listening to this podcast, we are getting into that sticky couple of months where news is starting to create FUD in the market, right? The fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But typically, when people go to sell their home, they're about 3 months behind on the news. So they made their decision 3 months ago. Now they're trying to time the market. You are going to have seriously difficult conversations right now as a listing agent, because instead of just going to a listing appointment and saying, here, Mr. Seller, however much you want for the house is fine. You are going to have to, again, set expectations. I talk about this a lot, right? But there's going to be some listing appointments you are going to lose out on because the seller is not going to want to hear what you have to say. And there's another real estate agent behind you that's going to list the house for whatever the seller says, right? So we are in this weird situation of the really good agents who understand the market shifting, who understand what the comps are, who knows what the price of the house should be, and can correctly convey that to the consumer, to the seller. They're going to win. But there's a whole lot of agents that are just going in listing appointments and saying, how much do you want? Good. Okay. So if you're in this market and you're competing, you need to tell the listing, the seller, you need to let them understand that if you're interviewing 3 other agents, those other 3 agents are going to just tell you what you want to hear. I'm bringing you facts and data and showing you exactly what this house is going to be worth. So don't be surprised if you're going to miss out on a couple listings by being truthful and honest and actually educating people on what's going on. But there's going to be a lot of agents behind you that are just going to say, list it for whatever you want. I have a perfect example in my subdivision right now. My subdivision typically has been a $300,000 subdivision pre-pandemic, right?
Oh, Nick, I think you muted yourself. Nope. Still nothing on Nick.
While he's fixing that, I'll say, for the last 2 years, we've seen price decreases around 17%. And historically, price decreases for a stable market are closer to 35%. So right now, we've grown. We've come up from from 17% up to about 26% in terms of price decreases. So yes, we definitely are feeling a slowdown. We're feeling buyers a little more hesitant with a little bit of exhaustion and not wanting to pay whatever is put in front of them. But the market is actually still well below what a balanced real estate market would be in this country.
Sure. So you're writing notes all the time, right? You're working out the paper. You're seeing these purchase and sale contracts that are coming through. Are you starting to see more of what they're saying on USA Today? More buyers looking for contingencies, things like that?
I'm seeing more just straight up buyer exhaustion is what I'm seeing. The contracts are the contracts, the contingencies are still in play. And I've always liked that. I've never been a big fan of, buyers waiving their rights. It's not really a good idea, in my opinion. But I see a lot of buyers who we've had approved to purchase properties for 6 months who have just said, you know what, we're going to go back and rent for 6 months. We're too tired. We don't want to do it anymore. And I think that's probably more of what we're experiencing in the environment than contingency removals or things like that.
Yeah. Nick, do we have your audio back?
I think so.
Yeah, you're good. What was your example in your neighborhood?
So we've traditionally been a $300,000 neighborhood pre-pandemic. That started creeping up to around $500,000. Most recently, with this recent push, beginning of this year, we had some houses tip over $600,000 in our market. Just this week, a house listed 3 houses down from me, slightly larger, maybe 300 square feet more, listed at $775,000, right? So that's a classic example. And this was a for sale by owner that ended up listing with an agent. So the for sale by owner went out there. The listing agent's probably cold calling or door knocking and telling that seller, I will list your house for whatever you want because this is a crazy market and we'll do whatever, right? There's a lot of that's going to be happening. These people in the past 2 years have been hearing about all this stuff going on, how much money you can get. And now we're at a time where $150,000 over ain't going to cut it anymore.
Understood. Mr. Tim Parnell, what say you?
Well, I'm going to speak from a market perspective on this, and that is that demand factor versus supply. But the demand is the buyer. And what happens, and it's buyer fatigue, but it is that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that FUD that the buyer gets. And if the buyers start getting a sense on a mass scale, this herd mentality of, oh, wait a minute, if I buy right now, the market's going down, I could be upside down on my mortgage and, by the end of the year or in a year, whatever, it's going to pump the brakes, as Mark was saying, and leave, tires tracks in the street because buyers don't want to jump into something they don't feel they're going to be up on their money in. And that's on any type of product, right? And so that's where I say this isn't a real estate market issue. This is an entire, national market issue on all aspects. And if people start feeling this fear, and the fear is real and the evidence is there, it's only going to compound. It's going to be a ripple effect, and it's just going to be kind of like that crash site on the highway. Everything gets backed up. Even though there's plenty of room to travel, everybody just slowing down to look at the crash, right? And that's what I feel like you're about to experience going in the next, end of the year, basically.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, Tim. I think once that crash site gets cleared out, you're going to start seeing more activity because the supply and demand nationally is just in a place where we would expect houses to continue to sell and prices to continue to go up, even though there may be a dip here in the next, short run going into what potentially could be a recession here in the next, I think we're calling it second or third quarter of 2023.
We've got the final segment here. We're going to check in with Dave Ramsey. Everybody knows who Dave Ramsey is, but they're preaching over there in that world that we're in the recession right now. So we'll listen to that. But there's a lot of contributing factors that go into buyers being ambitious to go ahead and purchase these homes. We have to deal with supply issues, inflation everywhere, gas prices, heavy prices at the pump. That's just straight up fatigue. So
let me offer something to agents that are having this struggle between, do I just tell the seller, yeah, I'll sell it for what you want, versus just to capture the listing? Because the reality is, as an agent, you're not making any money on the listing unless you have the listing, right? And so in some cases, there's a capitulation you have to have with a hard-headed seller. And I mean that lovingly. But if you can't break through to them on the reality of where the market is, first of all, show them the show, and let them know, hey, here's professionals coast to coast talking about the realities, right? And this could help you set that buffer, help you set that tone. But at the same time, if you're having a conversation with them and you say, look, sure, we can start out at your point. If they won't budge off of it, if your professional opinion isn't enough, then give them a step down plan that just says, if after this weekend of listing it, we're not getting any bites at all, we know we're too high. So have a preemptive plan that's already laid out for them to step down that price to certain percentages closer to what your recommendation would have been, because you've given them the proof to show that what theirs isn't working, right? Go ahead.
I was going to say to even strengthen that even more, what we do is we have them sign a piece of paper, because sellers will have extreme amnesia, and they will smile and nod and listen to everything you say at the listing appointment. And then when you say 3 weeks later, remember when I said that it's either 6 showings or 3 weeks before we need to reduce the price? And they go, you never said that. What are you talking about? Well, here's that piece of paper that you signed to the agreement that we had, right? So get them to sign something saying, hey, 6 showings, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever you want to call it. We'll give it a shot, but we're not just going to let it ride.
So we have a question from the audience. Miss Veronica asks, who will be holding the appraisers accountable for allowing the massive inflation? And she says, I asked that because a friend/appraiser said locally they are throwing their hands up. Mark, what say you?
Well, I would prefer not to take the blame for the country's inflationary issues. I think it should be understood that appraisers go out and they are the eyes of the lender, and we go back and report to them what we saw, and we make an informed opinion of value based on the sales in the area. Oftentimes, the appraised value comes up short of the contract price because we're doing just that. We are looking at the property, we're looking at the data, and we're giving an unbiased opinion of value based on what's happening in the market. When a seller is aggressive and a buyer is willing, which has been happening for 2 years now, the appraisal is, when it comes in short of the contract price, that buyer typically is willing to bring in the rest of the money. So I see people telling me, well, the house down the street sold for 1.1. Why isn't my house worth 1.1? And my response to that is, it sold for 1.1. We don't know that it appraised for 1.1. And when I go and look at the records and see that they have a first trust deed of $800,000, something tells me they got an 80% first trust deed, and the house appraised for $1 million, and they got a loan based on that. The buyer decided to bring $100,000 to the party because they have a fear of missing out, or they got a great rate, or for whatever reason. So appraisers tell lenders what they think properties are worth.
Sounds good.
Plus, too, Mark, let everybody know, if you're an agent, you're listening to this, how long does it actually take to become an appraiser, and why most appraise? Like, there's always a conflict between real estate agents and appraisers, right? Why can't you appraise this? Why can't you just push this? Let's make this deal happen. Well, when it takes you as long as it does to obtain a license as it does to be an appraiser, right? Real estate agents, nothing against you guys, but you take a 2-week class and you're a licensed agent. That's not the case for appraisers. So 99% of appraisers out there are not going to push a deal to lose their license or their eligibility to be an appraiser because they know how much time it takes to get that reinstated.
That's true. It takes a long time to go through the education side. And then we have an experience component also, where you basically have to spend a couple of years gathering up hours, doing appraisals underneath a supervisor. And to be honest with you, I do see a lot of appraisers, because I do review work and compliance work for lenders. I do see a lot of appraisers hitting the contract price for however they can manage to make that happen. And the reality of it is, if you start to miss those contract prices, your phone and your email starts to ring a lot less. So as much as Dodd-Frank wanted to do away with that type of stuff, there's a little bit of a undertone in the market where, you know, it's best for an appraiser to do all they can to get to the contract price. However, as a reviewer, my job is to come in and see if it's overvalued or not. But yeah, it does, to your point, it takes a long time to become an appraiser. Just because you get a license doesn't mean that you're going to prosper. So it's, and I love realtors. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's who I hang out with. That's who I network with, because I work outside of the lending world, and they are the gatekeepers to all referrals for estate work and non-lending type work. So, but most appraisers and realtors do kind of have that, you know, doctor lawyer type of relationship, unfortunately.
Yep.
Sounds good.
I love that point on the listing. You have that ammunition, right? House sold for 1.1, but it might not have appraised for 1.1. Those are the kind of conversations you guys are going to need to have as listing agents now to really educate people on what's going on.
So this next segment, ladies and gentlemen, obviously you can feel and sense the frustration through that last one. Oh my. But however, this might be another reason why we have issues right now with housing prices. Before we actually get into this report, we're going to have to precursor this. This is how it feels when you hit the pumps.
Get about this much. Okay, come on. No, that's not about this much, dude. Huh? Yeah. You got like half the amount right now. I want his amount. Oh, you're videotaping? Are you videotaping?
Yeah.
Cheers. Cheers. This is a news and napalm.
Oh, heard you.
Huh, it's not.
Just watch your respect go down.
Oh, that's good. Oh,
that's good.
Woo!
Every time you drive by the gas station, that's
every time. I feel like I'm eating nasal napalm horseradish when I go ahead and fill up the gas tanks and the fuel tanks. Have you ever done that horseradish challenge, Nick?
I've not done the horseradish challenge. I do love spicy food, but I've never taken a spoonful of that stuff.
There was a time, and this was not induced by the parents in my household. Yeah. My son and my daughter both challenged themselves to a wasabi challenge, and that was absolutely hilarious.
I've done wasabi. Yeah, wasabi's not bad. Not
all right.
Anyway,
what's going on with fuel and gas prices? This is hot off the mainstream media news, ladies and gentlemen.
Now to the record-breaking gas prices across the country. 9 states in Washington, D.C. now average more than $5 a gallon. And at one station in California, gas is selling for nearly $10 a gallon. Here's ABC's Will Carr.
Tonight, unprecedented pain at the pump.
$9.
Over $9 a gallon?
Over $9.
In Mendocino, California, gas at this station among the most expensive in the country, soaring to nearly $10 a gallon.
This is just the only gas station in town. Maybe I should go somewhere else.
Los Angeles County, the most populous in the country, now averaging more than $6.30 a gallon. some stations hovering around 8. This Arizona pizzeria raising delivery fees to offset the cost of gas.
The problem for us is we don't know where it's going to stop.
Drivers nationwide filling up their tanks and emptying their wallets. 9 states and Washington, D.C. now averaging more than $5 a gallon, the national average soaring to a record $4.84, according to AAA. In a new ABC News poll, 3/4 of Americans say gas prices are an extremely or very important factor in how they'll vote in the midterms. The Biden administration deflecting blame.
You hear these oil executives on the record talking about how they're not going to increase production. Why would they? They're doing great right now.
Putin's war is driving the price of food and gas up. We can't deny that. We know Americans are struggling. And demand changes.
Gas experts, though, say the reality is more complicated.
While the Russia war on Ukraine has pushed prices up, the other factor here is refining capacity, turning that oil into something more meaningful like gasoline.
Lindsay, think about this. Americans have spent $94 million more today on gas than they did 1 week ago. And here in California, the governor's proposed giving cash rebates out to people to help out, but it's unclear when or if that's going to happen. Lindsay.
People just looking for relief. Will, thank you.
Woo! Wasabi challenge and horseradish. Napalm at the pumps. All right. So prior to this administration coming in, everything seemed to be fine at the gas pumps. And then something must have changed. I love how the politicians always go ahead and spin this. There was a whole bunch of these things getting written out, executive orders stopping and moving and changing some different things to include the oil and gas industry, ladies and gentlemen. So Keystone Pipeline was getting shut down. And guess what? Yes, they're trying to deflect the current administration because people will vote with their wallet. Happens every election. Okay. Ask Jimmy Carter. Anyways, so do you like paying at the pumps? No, you don't. There's going to be a lot of people that vote the Republicans in. They're talking about a 240 seat majority in the House coming here in the midterm elections. So we'll see what happens there. I think it's going to happen. And Mr. Tim Parnell, what say you on the oil and gas prices at the pumps and how this relates to the housing market?
Oh yeah. I mean, again, I always fall back on this. There's an everything bubble that is happening. I think if you're going to blame a war entirely on these types of prices, then why didn't we have these kinds of prices in previous administrations that were in wartime administrations? And then also the lowest we remember them being, in our past several decades was under an administration that actually didn't go to war. But, I digress.
Well, hey, so Tim, let me jump in right there. During wartime type situations, typically the United States of America goes to work.
Right.
For our reserves, our national reserves, they unlock every single component of the oil and gas industry to go ahead and support this. Correct?
That is correct. And you would know this as well as I do, Jake. I mean, you were there. You were a combat veteran.
Yes. And I worked in the oil and gas industry. So I'm very biased on this. So I know the capability of our great country. And so do you, every single one of you people that are watching. So think about that when you when you vote during the midterms.
Absolutely. But to answer
I want the gas prices to come down.
Yeah.
Nick, do you? Tim, do you?
Absolutely.
So here's the thing. If you want to answer the question of how does this affect home prices, I would say, well, how does it affect the jobs? How does it affect going to work if the cost of getting there eats dramatically into the amount of money you're going to bring home? And so that's for me the question, the fundamental question that has to be asked at the point, what point does gas, the cost per gallon, and the commute to work negatively impact the desire to even be at work or go to work because you're at a wash? Okay. And there's a lot of industries that don't pay that well, and they're eating a good chunk into their end of month paycheck just to commute to work and back. And so what do we get, like a GPP loan, like a gas price pump or gas pump, whatever loan? I don't know. But there is a point where people have to make this decision. And I will tell you this, like, I'm very, very grateful that my primary source of income comes from doing, Zoom calls with people all across the nation, because I don't have to leave my house to do it. And so people are looking for things that are more fitting for that. And even as a licensed realtor, I have referred more business away, especially when it comes to buyers, because I understand the market, and it's a lot of gas to go show buyers houses. So, hey, you want to help somebody? They could use your help. So I'm just letting you know, this is some things that people need to consider as far as pivoting and looking for options.
Nick, those poor people in California, what is it, Mendocino, $9 a gallon? I mean,
yeah. I mean, so Mark said he hasn't been in the gas station since March of 2021.
Mark said that?
Yeah. So like, if that's the case, right, that's great. And that's awesome. So you do your part, save money, go get the EV vehicle. But then when the guy who cuts your grass calls you up and says, hey, instead of $150 a month, it's now $200 a month because gas is so high. When you're ordering your Uber Eats and the tip is more expensive, with like all these things, all these other businesses that are ancillarily still have to go to work, still have to put gas in their gas tank, are going to charge you more money. Greg McDaniel's going to be on Segway. That's hilarious.
Mark, so you haven't been to a gas pump in how long?
Over a year. And the gas prices here have jumped significantly since that point. But yeah, to Nick's point,
how do you even do that? Wait a second. How do you do that? Like, how do you get to live a lifestyle where you don't even go to a gas pump in a year?
You drive an electric vehicle.
Doesn't it cost more money to charge that electric vehicle when you calculate it all down?
No, I plug the car in at my home, and the utility has a different rate for electric vehicle owners that is significantly reduced. So the car is timed to start charging at midnight till 6 a.m. And I get my bill every month. That period of time, my energy usage, and California is one of the highest rates for energy. We can go on the solar diatribe on another day, but it adds about $40 to $45 per month to my electric bill to charge the car.
And how often are you driving that electric vehicle?
We have one car in our house, so it's out there all the time, whether I'm using it or someone else in the house is using it.
But don't you miss those delicious Subway sandwiches at the gas station?
I've been there with my friends, I'll stop in and have a
just to remember what it was
like visiting a museum. Like, look,
yeah. I'm still waiting for a Buc-ee's in Tampa. That's supposed to be the best destination ever in northern Florida and Georgia. So if anybody's listening to this and been to a Buc-ee's, is it all hype? Because everybody that I know that's been there.
Hey, we've got one about 25 minutes away from my house. So
Tim is trying to get me to drive out to Texas so he can take me on a vacation to Buc-ee's.
Yeah,
that's what we do here. Their bathroom was bigger than my first house, so there's that.
Electric vehicles and electric bicycles have become very popular. And they're very difficult to find, because today being National Supply Chain Day, those guys are taking the day off, clearly.
So Michael says we're getting a Buc-ee's in Colorado. That's fantastic. Good deal. So let me ask you guys this. Common sense, right? We are so dependent on oil and gas, not only as a means to go ahead and power our vehicles and our work trucks and everything else like that, but oil is involved in just about everything, every product, everything in our daily lives in some form and capacity. If we are going to make a shift as a country to lessen our carbon footprint, be more responsible to the environment, wouldn't we just start to go there instead of dramatically go ahead and pull the rug out from the oil and gas industry, and all of a sudden it just offsets and out leverages our basic way of life right now? Tim, what say you?
It would seem a very interesting tactic to try and make people feel pain towards the idea of gasoline anything or oil anything, though I don't think a very effective one. I think you just make a lot of people mad. But to be fair, like, I do understand the electric vehicle industry is there, but it is in no way able to meet the demand at an affordable cost to the masses. It just isn't there. And frankly, even the replacement alternative energy isn't effective enough to meet the demand of the masses without taking, if you took us completely off fossil fuel type, non-renewables, whatever you have. But so no, I don't think that it makes any sense to go that route. But it's like coming back to saying, is pollution bad? Yes. Should we do something about it? Yes. And there should be a collective effort for it. But locking everyone in their homes and telling them not to go outdoors is not the most appropriate way to handle that as a solution. So, there has to be a community buy-in on the national effort, not a forced, flogging type thing.
Flogging. Tim just said flogging, ladies and gentlemen.
Threw it in there.
Flogging.
If I could just get one of those every episode, we'll be good.
Mr. Kirk Jaffe, oil prices are through the roof. You're up in Lake Tahoe. What is the gas pumps reading on the California side of the lake, and what are they reading on the Nevada side of the lake? Quite curious.
Yeah, driving up here the other day, I was seeing California prices in the $7.20 range. And the second I hit Nevada, it went down to $4.99.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how much of a drive was that?
The drive from LA to Tahoe is about 7.5 hours.
No, I
Most
mean,
of
from
it in
like the
California.
gas pumps on the California side to the gas pumps on the Nevada side. Doesn't it split the lake?
Less than 50 miles between them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what's your take on electric scooters and things and sorts like that?
I think they're great. I think as people move back into cities, we saw a lot of cities get decimated with the pandemic and people are moving back. Electric bicycles are a great way to get around and a great way to, utilize that space. Up here in Lake Tahoe, you're not allowed to use them that much. You can't take an electric vehicle on any of the trails in the national park system because it's too hard on the environment. So the rangers are really out watching carefully for that.
Interesting.
The other thing, I mean, look at all the builders and what they're doing with these massive developments, right? There's not a builder right now that's building a community that isn't setting up that community to eat, live, play, work, everything inside the community, all within the range of a neighborhood electric vehicle / golf cart, whatever you want to call it, right? You never have to leave your compound. This is what they're building now. From the Epperson ranches of the world, these big lagoons, you don't even have to go to the beach because you got a 100-acre lagoon in your backyard, right, that you can go to as an amenity. So I think the I don't want to say jail, but it was like, pick your poison, right? You make something so nice, you get there, and all of a sudden, like, you don't realize that you're in jail, but you are in jail because you're in this really cushy development. It might might not look like jail, but they're going to make it look real nice to you.
So Nick, if the gas prices just keep going up, I like to travel. I love this country. I love every single state that I've been in. I love traveling around, but I might not be able to afford it. I think I might have to do the Forrest Gump thing. Like
just run,
ladies and gentlemen. But you're right. I mean, they're trying to meta our world, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Nick?
Well, Elon Musk said that it would take, I think he said 100 of his factories, 100 gigafactories, to completely make the world sustainable on solar and electric. I don't know how many of those factories he has now. It's probably half a dozen or less. But that's his goal personally, right? But you still need fossil fuel to make all the batteries. So it just shifts the target.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It sure does. All right, let's get into our final segment and close this out. I am feeling for each and every single one of you at the pumps. Remember that at the voting polls, because I want prices to go down. So, all right, Mr. Dave Ramsey says to his audience, wait until home prices go down, or will they? So let's go ahead and check in with Dave Ramsey, see what's happening over there.
Today's question comes from Kevin in Phoenix. He says, I know you say to put 20% down on a 15-year fixed rate mortgage, but in the market I'm in, it feels unattainable. At one point, we hit our savings goal, but by the time we saved up enough, the home prices had jumped way up. We're debt-free and we've been renting for a few years, and it just feels like we'll never be able to buy our first home. We're trying to run the baby steps, but don't see the light at the end of the tunnel right now. Is it okay to put less down in order to get into a house faster, or should we wait for house prices to come down? Well, that question at the end there, I'll answer that first. Maybe both. We don't say you have to put 20% down, especially on your first home. We say it's ideal to put 20% down because you avoid PMI, private mortgage insurance, which is extra money you pay to protect the lender, not you. So as a first-time home buyer, I love that you're trying to follow the baby steps, you're debt-free, you're saving up for this house, and so I'm okay with you putting less down as your down payment in order to get into this house. And yes, you probably should wait for the housing market to cool off a little bit so you're not putting 100 over asking with no inspection. Don't do stupid stuff like that.
Yeah, prices are not going to come down, Kevin. If you're waiting on prices to come down, you're not going to buy a house ever. Prices are not coming down. They are going to slow the rate at which they are increasing, though. That's what George is referring to, where the market cools off. Right now, asking price means suggest you start bidding here. And we want to get out of that kind of thing. And you're probably going to see that. We've seen interest rates tick up. The market has slowed down. We seem to be moving into our second quarter of contraction in the economy. This is known as a recession. And the Biden administration seems bound and determined to create one, so it looks like we're going to be there. And that's where, I mean, politics aside, it's just observation. And so I think you're probably going to see calming down. But we've never seen house prices go down in the modern America, like since the 1930s, except one time. And that was for about 6 or 8 months in 2008. When the bubble burst on the housing market. And it was a financing bubble. It wasn't a real estate bubble. And so some markets, Phoenix was particularly hit. Las Vegas was particularly hit. A few other major cities that were super hot. They contracted, and the prices actually went down. But that's the only time I've seen that, and I've had a real estate license 30 years. I can't find it anywhere since the late 30s, 1930s. So 100 years almost. And so I don't think you're going to see house prices go down. But we did have, 2020 house prices went up 32%, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then in 21 they went up 14%, and they're predicting in 22 for them to go up 7%. So we're seeing a slow, the rate of increase is less. And I think we're going to continue to see that. But I don't think you're going to see house prices lower. So yes, I would buy.
Interesting. So we're going to spin this last one here. We're going to combine these two segments, ladies and gentlemen. Mortgage and appraiser news, and also what Dave Ramsey just went ahead and said. So, Kirk, kick us off. What say you on this whole matter?
Well, I love what Dave Ramsey said. I think he's spot on. I don't see pricing going down on homes. It will continue to slow. I 100% agree with him that there's only been one instance where housing went down during a recession in the past, we'll say since 1930. That's what he referenced, and I think that's probably a good number. We see some concerns in the markets right now, though. As of yesterday, the 10-year note hit a very important ceiling of 3%, and the mortgage-backed securities dropped below a floor. And both those things combined tell me interest rates are probably going to start going up again here in the next week or so. I think between now and when the recession actually hits, which I referenced earlier, second or third quarter of 2023, even though we may already be in it, it's not reporting yet. So when it all starts to report and the Fed starts to make counter moves to what they've been doing, I think we could see rates as high as, if everything stays on the same trajectory that it's on today, I think we're looking at rates at maybe 7% on the 30-year fixed mortgage. However, I don't think the Fed has the stomach to stick with it, and I think they're going to pull back much earlier on their agenda. So I don't think we're actually going to get there, but if everything stays as it is now, that's the kind of the chart that we're looking at.
Their push in increasing the interest rates is to curve the inflationary situation that's happening right now, but they're going to have to go ahead and pull back. Otherwise it will throw the whole country and all economies that are attached to our country into a whirlwind of pain if they go ahead and maintain at that side.
Yeah, there's definitely a ceiling too. The federal funds rate also dictates what the U.S. government pays for their national debt. So at some point, the federal government's going to go, we can't afford this anymore. I think it's somewhere around 6.5%, but I'm not entirely sure. I'll go do the research for us for maybe Thursday's show. I think about 6.5%, the cost to service the national debt is in excess of GDP. And that would not be a good thing for this country. I don't think the government would let that happen.
Mark, what say you? Will prices come down, or are they going to continue to go up?
Well, unlike Kirk, I agree with not 100% of what Dave says, but 50% of what Dave had to say there. I do agree that prices are not going to come down. His counterpart on the show there said to wait for prices to come down. You will be waiting, most likely, in most markets across the country for quite some time. What he said about the one time ever prices going down for 6 months in 2008, I'm not sure where the data came from, but if you were to look at Case-Shiller, CoreLogic, Altos Research, these types of historical data, the market went down significantly from 2007 to 2009. And it took a while to get back to no longer declining, which was in about 2010. And then 2010 and 11, we went back and declined some more. Ever since between 2012 and 2019, the market somewhat stabilized and normalized, or we're getting a typical 3 to 5% annual increase. And since 2019, the market's gone bonkers. So when we talk about increasing and declining, if we're going to just say based on 0% increase or decline, we had a couple of years of it. If anybody who owned a home during that period felt it. So I didn't feel it for 6 to 8 months back then. And anybody who's in the mortgage business, like, Kirk and I are, the volume was pretty much gone for quite some time. And realtors, the activity for them was all around foreclosure properties. So he's spot on with, if you're going to wait for prices to come down, you may be waiting for quite some time.
Now, I have a question for all of you guys. Okay, so we are being told that there's a supply issue of homes in the industry. We've reported multiple times that investors are squatting on homes, some to the tune of over 1 million, in excess of 1 million vacant homes in the state of Florida, trading these things like stocks. We know that multiple millions of people put their homes into forbearance, and I know the current administration has tried to kick that can down the road to go ahead and make sure there's some federal protections. So these people, if they try to reinstate and don't have the income to support those, we don't get into a massive foreclosure issue that will throw this off. However, again, yes, we've just seen massive appreciation of our homes in such a short order, but we also have outside inflationary and supply issues and everything else that are all interlocked. And Mr. Tim Parnell says this is an everything kind of a bubble. If we get into an economic issue where now all of a sudden we're losing jobs like crazy because supply issues, oil and gas issues, and everything else like that, could it come into the housing market? And at that point, if people can't go ahead and afford their homes, could we start seeing that issue, especially if interest rates are all the way up? Now 7% on a $500,000 home is crazy, especially if you don't have the supporting income, and most Americans don't. What say you, Tim?
Jake, I mean, do I need to say anything after that? I mean, you set it up so perfectly. All I'm going to say is what he said, right? But no, I mean, you're establishing the position that I'm coming from. I'm always coming from the position of, if you ask me, how's the real estate market? I'm going to tell you the real estate market's great as far as it's staying on a steady course. It's continuing to go up. I mean, yes, it was like wildfire the last couple of years, but in and of itself, the real estate market has no indication that it is going to decline and that the house values will decline. And that is never. So when I interject my opinion that is contrary to what Dave Ramsey's saying, who, I think he's fantastic, and the community he serves is, I mean, they get a lot out of him. But my issue is, like you just said, we've got these looming, mortgage balance holders that haven't paid, and what happens if they don't? And then you've got job insecurity out there, and maybe people aren't able to work anymore, or they can't afford to pay the mortgage. And then what happens when they go into forbearance now moving forward? And so you've got these very interesting outliers that in and of themselves, just one outlier could be enough to affect the market negatively. but we've got a whole bunch of outliers out there, people. A whole bunch. Just wait, like whammies, right? No whammies, no whammies. And there's a landmine field full of whammies, and we're tiptoeing through it right now. And this is where I stand. So I'm not trying to be like Chicken Little and the sky is falling. I'm just trying to point out the obvious. Well, I think that is obvious that other people aren't looking at within our industry, or even other people who are looking at our industry from the outside to consider these other factors. So that's where I come from.
There's a lot of liquidity inside of our federal marketplace right now, a tremendous amount of liquidity, which I feel that the Federal Reserve and the government is trying to go ahead and pull back. All right, get some of that liquidity back out of the marketplace, which is a big contributor to this. Nick, what say you?
Well, I think what we're seeing, like with Tim saying the everything bubble, right? Inflation really puts a strain on the small business owner that employs people, right? So like one of the levers that we're looking at, all these, even these big corporations now, you go to McDonald's, you can make $15 an hour, $16 an hour. Like that is going to come to an end before housing prices drop 20%, right? One of the things that Kurt knows, one of the last things they do before you buy a house is check your employment, right? 24 hours before, do you still have a job? It's like the landmines are coming, like Tim said, and that's what we're trying to dodge right now. I don't agree with everything Dave Ramsey talks about. 50%. I'm probably in the 50% group with him. But what's really interesting is I think most people, when they hear recession, so there's a lot of recession talk in the news right now. So they immediately, because it's short-term thinking, they go back to 2008. If they were around back then, and then comparing to that of all of the subdivisions and developments that were out there that were barren wasteland, thinking the housing prices are going to go down 50%. We're in a totally different situation, right? It's not even close to that same framework now as it was back then. So when the idea that I'm going to wait to see this house fall 20 to 30%, but the interest rates are still at the same or still climbing is absolutely ludicrous. Like you're pinpointing your focus on the wrong thing, right? Your monthly mortgage payment is where you need to be. That's where you need to understand as a real estate professional. You need to educate your people on those facts. And yeah, we're in a completely different framework right now. There's a lot of other ancillary.
Well, we just reported that 1 out of 5 homes had that Redfin report. 1 out of 5 homes, the sellers had to go ahead and reduce their prices. So what is that telling us? Right.
It's the home affordability, right? It's based on the interest rate. It's not based on if it was based on the housing demand, then we wouldn't be in this situation. It's the affordability, and that's all tied back to the interest rate, which is what they're tapering right now, right? So like it still goes back to the interest rate.
I think it's important to remember that
in here, Kirk, real quick before I'm going to throw something in here. I do think that the prices are going to go ahead and come down.
20%?
No, I do think the prices are going to come down. Now, I hope I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, that means that our government is going to go ahead and control inflation and supply issues, and they're actually going to do their job and have some fiscal responsibility and manage our money properly. But I do believe the landmines are going to go ahead and get hit, and I do think that we're going to see a reduction. So if I'm wrong, this is good, right? This is good. Go for it, Kirk.
I think we'll see some adjustments for sure, but there's that old saying, don't fight the Fed. I mean, housing is so important to the success of the economy. You know, secondary products, appliances, cars, schools, tax base, all those things go into buying houses. I think the government's going to have a very hard time, even though I agree with you, Jake, that they're pulling money back out of the system that they put in, right? They flooded the system with trillions of dollars. They got to pull that back now. There will be some adjustments, but I think in the long run, over a 3 to 5 year period, you're going to continue to see house prices increase.
In certain markets, I think you will see a little bit of a decline. But as I mentioned before, the market would be like going from 140 miles per hour going down to 40 miles per hour. But there are some hyperinflated markets out there, and in Florida and the usual suspects in Phoenix and Austin and Las Vegas. They've all seen well over 20 to 25% appreciation. So I think it's all relative. what would you consider a decline? Not increasing by 20% or actually going negative? Because appraisers have a hard challenge on their hands, because we have been making adjustments for the market. If a home sold in the past, we would add value to that home when comparing it to your home currently. When the market turns, like it feels like it's starting to turn, we have to be very cognizant of what's going on. And we may be in a hyperinflated market in the Bay Area or somewhere in California where suddenly we see, oh, the home today can't sell as high as it did 2 or 3 months ago. And then we would make a negative downward adjustment to that comparable. So it's a hard balance.
Also, this is a good situation to talk about, Mr. Mark. You're appraising in California, and from what I've heard throughout the last 20 years, that market is always going up and down and up and down and all over the place.
Well, over the long haul, it's gone up. But as I mentioned before, we saw a significant decline. And, a 10% decline in the value in a place like Tulsa is not monetarily the same as it is in a place like Beverly Hills. So it's significant. And the market does go up and down. And we're in a different place than we were in 2008. That was a completely different time when we weren't under these inflationary pressures. This was, like Dave said, it was a financial problem, not a real estate problem. And there was a lot of shenanigans going on behind the scenes. But the difference between now and then is if you were to get into some kind of trouble, you can't fill up your car, the food's costing you more, you're getting squeezed from every angle, and you can't make your house payment, you have a very easy out now. Put your house up for sale, and it will sell, and you have equity. If you've owned that house since the pandemic began, you've got 20% probably, and you can get out of all your problems. So before we had homes going down 30%, and if you were to get out of your house, you had to take a big hit financially.
Tim, I have a question for you. So some of the other recessionary issues, some of the other housing market issues we didn't have as many investors playing houses like stocks right now across the whole United States of America. So what happens if all of a sudden you see a stock price start to go ahead and decline if you are in the market? A lot of times people go ahead and sell, right? Now there's a higher inventory of stocks. So if investors are trading houses like stocks, holding multiple millions, and I venture to say that they're sitting here holding the supply bag of what's needed to go ahead and stabilize the actual real estate marketplace. If all of a sudden they see a downturn, boom, if they dump inventory on the marketplace, what happens?
Well, what if, and this is complete speculation on my part, but what if it was intentional and these people are holding these, what we've discussed in previous episodes, these allotments of empty homes, just waiting? Why wouldn't they sell them at the peak of the market, and why would they keep them empty right now? And so, yeah, this gets a little speculative, but what you're saying reigns true no matter what, except there's this other alternative of what if it's dumped on the market at a particular time that isn't beneficial to the market, and why the heck would they even do that? And so these are the questions that I ask from my position, going, that would be a landmine, that would be an outlier that we wouldn't anticipate, that could certainly affect the market. And so all of a sudden you've got this influx of homes coming in just from empty investor held homes on the market. So anyway, this is little things like that. I agree with you on putting it out there as a question. Sorry, a boy just came in. I'll let you take it away. I'm going to put it on mute.
10-4. I think we need to question everything, as Mr. Tony Barbarino says on this, and time will tell, and hopefully I'm wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully I am wrong. Vote for me to be wrong, ladies and gentlemen. So we all just want a beautiful, stable United States of America where everybody's prosperous, have opportunity, and we're not dealing with big swings of shifts that we always have to alter and pivot to. And it just feels like we've been doing a lot of that lately, doesn't it, Nick?
Absolutely. From a marketing perspective, right? You're listening to this show, you follow us so that you can stay up to date with what mainstream news is saying and how it affects everybody that's listening, right? I implore you one thing to take away. Please don't go into the marketplace right now as a typical agent and say, now's a great time to buy and sell. As a consumer, when I hear that, I don't know you as an agent. As soon as I hear that, I think this guy is so full of, you know what, has no idea what's going on and doesn't hear what I'm hearing in the marketplace. So there is an asterisk right now. You can definitely help people, but please, 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 when people are asking you, how's the market, don't let your first response be, now's a great time to buy or sell, because there's a lot of fear in the market, and you instantly lose credibility when you say something like that right out of the gate before you can explain what's really going on.
Interesting. Mr. Mark Buhler, how can people get in touch with you if they need help or better understanding of the appraisal marketplace?
Yeah, I'm available by email. You can reach out to me, Mark, M-A-R-K, at cmpappraisal.com.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mr. Mark. We appreciate you. Mr. Kirk Jaffe, Captain Kirk, high on the mountains in beautiful Lake Tahoe. I'm so jealous, and so should you all be that's watching this. Kirk, how can people get in touch with you if they want the no BS in the mortgage world and to get some type of representation there?
Yep, you can always find me at kirkjaffe.com or 818-469-2189. And I'll add to what Nick said, make sure you're working with your real estate agents. Make sure you're working with your mortgage lending partners, because we want to make sure that buyers are getting a pre-approval letter that they can stick with, and that they're willing to maybe give up on the property, because, you know, if properties do come down a little bit, we want to make sure we're keeping people in affordability, and so they can stay in these homes, not have trouble down the road.
Amen. You know, I was hanging out at kirkjaffe.com. That's Kirk Jaffe, Jaffe.com. I was hanging out there the other day for probably about 20 minutes because it's a cool website.
Thank you.
So, yeah, you guys got to go check it out. Kirk did a great job. Tim Parnell, how can people get in touch with you to get educated on how to protect their wealth and assets against possible impending situations happening?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can check us out at patriotwealthnation.com, but you can email me directly at tim@patriotwealthnation.com. We'd love to talk to you, show you ways to get protected. And anybody we sit down with is always grateful for the information and education, just because we just give it. It's wholly given, and we want you to be blessed by it. So happy to talk to you.
10-4. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Oh, where'd Nick go? Hey,
Oh.
Nick. Nick, that was a mouthful of a show. We ran an hour and 17 minutes. This thing is just getting longer and longer. People are watching. We're digging into the concepts here. How can people get in touch with us at Real Estate America News and go back and view this program?
Yeah, head over to REU Nation. You'll see our show, Real Estate America News, in the banner. So click that. All the show notes and everything are available. Again, we want you on the show representing your market, right? We're putting a lot of time and effort and energy into this show to bring you guys boots on the ground, real estate perspective, news from real estate perspective people, right? So we want all markets eventually to be served. We want everybody to have an opinion here, talk about what's going on, let everybody know, because the more minds we have on this show supporting the real estate industry, the better. And that's what we're building here. So head over to reunation.com and fill out the form to be included.
We have some new co-hosts coming in over in the great state of Tennessee from Nashville. So this Thursday, we're going to be visiting with a top mortgage and real estate professional there. And I just happened to serve with him in the great United States Air Force.
Very nice.
So wonderful veterans doing their job in this industry. Good for them. So outstanding, ladies and gentlemen. We are streaming live on the RU Nation Network. We are live every Tuesday and Thursday at high noon Eastern, 0900 for all of you folks out on the West Coast. We ask you to do some weird things here, such as there's a bell on the tube of YouTube, and we're supposed to smash it. Now, don't hurt your computer or your phone when you do this. I don't want you to do that, right? So we have a lot of inflation happening, and I don't want you to have to replace your smart device. So don't smash your computer, but please just smash that bell for us. Did I do that right, Nick?
Yeah, smash the like button. Go ahead and share the show. If you're getting value from this show, and you have other real estate agents that you know that follow you, please just share the show out. That's all we ask of you, right? Again, we put in a lot of time, effort, and energy, and what Sarge would say are non-infinite lives to come bring you guys as much news as possible, so that you have all the information you need to better your business. So please share this with everybody that you know that's in the real estate industry.
10-4. And a quick shout out to our sponsor of Real Estate America News. Freedom Move USA is also partnered with Perk Plans. Go to freedommoveusa.com to go ahead and find a real estate agent in your area that can help you save $10,000 to $25,000 on your next move if you're planning on making a move. So, Nick, I heard if somebody goes and hires a realtor that's not certified, they're going to have to spend all of that money, and that money goes a long way, especially right now at the pumps. What say you?
That's right. So we're shaking up, Freedom Move USA, shaking up the moving industry. For a long time, it's been kind of the untouchable resource. And so Freedom Move is actually taking the freight rate versus the retail rate and helping the consumer move at a much more affordable cost for the same service. So think of it like the Dollar Shave Club versus Gillette that had the market share for the longest time. We are bringing you good quality razors for a fraction of the price, right?
freedommoveusa.com. Come check out that real estate team over there. Those guys are awesome. Every single one of the people. A lot of realtors, a lot of folks are picking up territories all across the United States of America and are there to support you, ladies and gentlemen. So if you or your friends or your family, if somebody's selling a home, go find the certified Freedom Move USA agent today. Help you save some money. Good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a blessed rest of your day. And once again, I'm going to leave you with a big bang. We had a lot of people saying that the firework was awesome from last show. It is one super big firework. Check this out. We're going to close out the show. Be blessed and unstoppable, and we will see you all on Thursday.